this is where the work that we're doing in the blockchain, developing all of these new tools that put the power back in the people, actually meets with the people on the ground. And that's really exciting and practical, and there's lots of ways that all of you who are here in this room are working with different projects and organizations that can benefit from connecting and exchanging with the other people who are here as well. So I want to just give you a little bit of expectations for the night, or for, we're starting just a little bit late, but I do want to take some time up front for some announcements and to introduce a few different people who are already organizing different events. I'd like to introduce Mariona with the Women in Blockchain. She organizes here in Barcelona. Would you like to come up for just a moment? Great. I'm going to stand next to you because the microphone's on my shoulder here.
Thank you, Dani. Well, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Some of you, I see some familiar faces already, which is nice. I am the organizer of Women in Blockchain Barcelona, which is a group which tries to give voice to women in the blockchain sphere. We have just started this year, so it's quite an evolving community. We are growing, and well, what we do, we organize meetups. We try to do some technical and non-technical meetups, trying to introduce different topics about Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all the blockchain sphere. Sorry. And the idea is, to bring more women inside the community, because as you know, it's obviously full of men, and it would be nice to reverse the bias, and especially when developing technology, it is important to have different profiles developing the technology, so we have a more representative technology. So that's what we do, and we are also collaborating with different groups, with Dani, with Giveth, with Radical Exchange right now, and trying to push the community a little bit further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorenzo, would you come up and share just a little bit with us about Akasha and maybe the space that we're all able to be in here today?
Yeah, welcome, first of all. You are in the Akasha Hub, Barcelona. We are, this is a lateral project from the Akasha Foundation, based in Switzerland. We started a few years ago, 3 years ago, working on decentralized social network. And we are now, we have a beta running the last 1.5 years, probably. And this project is about empowering local people with technology. So we are organizing events about understanding which is the current situation, the complexity of society today. Then we have some other events, workshop to get to know current technology, state-of-the-art technology, and if somebody connect the dots and want to start a project focused on social, possibly open source, we just give them a desk and we push them forward. So this is about that. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Adria, you want to come up and say a little words with us? Come stand with me for a moment. Tell us what you do here in Barcelona.
Yeah, so I am also organizing the Ethereum Developers Meetup. So we usually are reordering here. So, and I really like to support Giveth to organizing also things here, like the guy that comes to Barcelona, the Circle UBA. It's a super nice project. So, and okay, so but this is a Giveth event. So I'm sure that everybody is going to be very happy. It's not so technical, but I think it's also super interesting to know all about new crypto economics, how to organize and build new systems, and then developers we can develop with limited ideas to
lost it. Yes, I have to log back in. Sorry. There's.
Do you guys actually have meetups coming up? Do you have a meetup plan? Anybody?
Yeah, this plan.
Does it work?
Yeah. Wait.
Two meetups. One is about
Yeah.
You need the
substrate product.
Okay.
And the idea is to do a full day workshop of substrate, and after that a Polkadot meeting. So I don't know. And Adrian is also organizer of the video meetup. So you want to explain also the other meetups as well?
Yeah, there is also another workshop, meetup on plan. We don't have a date yet, but it will be probably also in July. It's Holochain. So just to clarify, the Ethereum Dev meetup is a technical meetup. So we try to put like a sort of like showcase part, very short, and then focus on like a code walkthrough or maybe like a little hacking session or such thing.
Awesome. One more person I'd like to ask to say just a few words. Marika is here, and she's the one person who actually has a slide.
Yeah.
So,
My name is Marika. Well, I work for Barcelona Blockchain Week, and actually it's my third day working there. And I mean, actually, like, I'm a graphic designer, but the manager asked me to kind of present you guys this event, which is gonna take place tomorrow in Maritime restaurant, and it's like we're gonna host the blockchain cruise, and we also want to invite some local people to be there. So basically, just for you, people who are here, we have this 50% discount with this promo code, and you can buy a ticket through, just go to the Instagram page, and the links are there, basically, yeah. Nothing more to say. That's a pity that our manager is not here, so she can explain more, but it is what it is. Anyway, thank you.
awesome. So the other thing I just want to share here before we get started, I'm going to let Griff talk to you about Giveth. I won't go into that, but if you see those of us here with these green, or that's purple, our Giveth stickers, please at the end of this event, please come check in with us. There's a few interesting things that we did in order to organize this event. Throughout the talks tonight, besides the things that come with the radical markets, you know, there's things with property rights, voting, immigration, data privacy, a lot of amazing technologies that we're working on to revolutionize the way these political and society management systems work. So the thing you're going to hear a lot about is token bonding curves and the commons. This is something that Giveth has been putting a lot of work into as an area that we see we can really radically transform how we make decisions in our organizations and our communities to use our resources and create a more just society. So one of the things that we did when we're organizing our event here is we created our own little token bonding curve, our Giveth gatherings community. So many of us who are part of Giveth, we just completed today our week-long retreat. And to celebrate that, we wanted to share with our friends. So we all pitched in and bought tokens in this curve, and the refreshments that you are able to enjoy tonight are the benefit of that fund. And also, we all receive tokens out of that fund. You'll hear more about how that works. But it's creating a fund for us to continue to do events like this and to bring people together to share how we can practically apply these tools to our own organizations and communities. So I hope you'll all stay to the end. There's a lot of things we can share. There are instructions if you are interested in learning how to join either our Giveth community, or if you'd like to start your own, please check out these instructions, and anybody with a sticker will walk you through how to do that. And without talking anymore, I'm going to let Griff come on up here and take this little microphone.
How many of you guys, I missed it before, how many of you guys are familiar with what radical markets are and all of that jazz? Okay, so very few. So let's start with just the beginning, right? Because I'm going to dive right in. What the hell are markets, right? Now, there's lots of ways to define what markets are, blah, blah, blah. We could talk all day about how markets are used, but really, at the core of it, markets coordinate people. They coordinate people really effectively. Now, there's all sorts of holes in the ways that we apply markets, but what's really interesting is that if you have a very developed market, you don't have to tell anyone to do anything. The communication is understood by the value of whatever is underlying the value of that market. So often it's a currency, right? And so people don't have to be told to put a community center here. They're like, oh, this is like the best place for the community center when I analyze the market, right? And so they don't have to actually talk to somebody. Whereas when you take out the market, human coordination is very inefficient. Like it's just hard, right? It's really hard to talk to people and explain like what you want and what they have to offer and hear what everyone is thinking, right? And so the market, this idea of markets, ideally would allow people to understand where the most value can be generated, right? Now, markets suck, right? Like, there's a whole lot of problems in the way that we use markets. For one, it's generally a monopolistic idea, right? There is one market in Barcelona, it's the euro, right? And the euro is determines what has value and what doesn't have value. But there are things in our markets that have value but don't have market value, right? Like keeping a river clean. Clearly that has value. Everyone wants to see this river clean. But why doesn't it have market value? Well, because the markets are models. Markets are simply models that only really, or at least the markets that we generally think of, that we use, are market economies. The monopoly economy that is here in Barcelona or in the States or in basically all over the world, they have one economy that says individual wants and needs, really easy to satisfy, really easy to value, right? But when it's a shared resource, that doesn't fit the model that we have, right? When it's like the value, the standard of living for the less fortunate in our society, clearly we all want there to be a high standard of living for everyone, but that's hard to value, right? Radical markets is an advancement of blockchain tech. Let me take a step back. So now we have these monopoly economies that say this is all that can have value, are these like individual wants and needs, right? That's the monopoly economy that we have. Well, then blockchain kind of came on the space, right? Bitcoin jumped in. It was like, actually, you know what? Let's create another economy that can live on top of this economy. And this economy is going to generate a global payment system. So what Bitcoin is really revolutionary for is realigning the incentives so that people can produce, I mean, this is my argument, right? I don't know if it's really promoted that well, but Bitcoin realigned the incentives around a cause, around an idea of creating a global payment system that anyone can access. We're using cryptography and all sorts of cool stuff, right? But they didn't have to enforce anything around this commons. They actually just created that payment system. And they realigned incentives. And this is really the core, for me, about radical markets. It's about using technology, generally. Sometimes they use legal tech, too, in the radical markets book. I'm not going to talk about anything on the legal side of things. That's not my style. But the part that I like is using technology to realign incentives to create an efficient market that produces value for society, right? That's where it gets really exciting. So blockchain technology, I would argue its real use case is realigning incentives. And Giveth came on the scene actually after the DAO hack. We were very excited about DAOs and all this stuff. Actually, Jordi Bellina, who is from Barcelona, He also is a founder of Giveth with me and a few other people. We were very influential in the DAO, and when that went out, wow, it was, I'm not even going to get into the DAO, right? But Giveth rose from the ashes to allow for this realignment of incentives to impact a space that I thought really needed it. This is the donation space. Donations and charity generally are not, they don't have a lot of market influence, right? Altruism in general is not valued. Shared resources, standards of living for less fortunate in society. These are things that don't have a fit in our market economies. They're just not valued. However, they have value. And it's not because people don't want it there. It's because we use markets so strongly in our culture and in our coordination systems that these things that don't fit the model are kind of left out. And so Giveth wanted to allow for amazing blockchain entrepreneurs to interface with the charity space. And so we built this, we call it a donation application, where people can raise funds in crypto and have complete transparency and traceability of where the donations go. This is the Giveth app. We have it, it's working live, it's amazing, beta.giveth.io if you want to check it out. It's really cool. It's still beta, of course, and it uses the Ethereum blockchain. But that, for us, is just a piece of infrastructure to enable radical markets to arise. This is where I finally get into radical markets. Sorry about the intro. So now I want to talk about 3 pieces of technology that are generally considered in radical markets. And I want to talk for specifically making the world a better place, right? And in specific instances. So the first I'll kind of blaze through is quadratic voting. Does anyone know what quadratic voting is? Okay, now you guys rose your hands. Who wants to explain it? Anybody? Come on, I'm not going to say anything. It's on you guys. Yeah?
So quadratic voting would basically be giving minority vote holders more of a say by, the math is a little bit complicated, but squaring the square roots of all of the votes summed up. So in other words, if I, in a one token, one vote system, where I can vote with 1,000 tokens if I'm more wealthy, and you can only vote with 10 if you're less wealthy, your 10 is worth more than my 1,000 when you add them all up. So you're basically evening out the distribution of wealth between the people who have tokens and the people who don't, which addresses the plutocracy we see in crypto systems today, or helps to.
I think that was a great explanation. He nailed it, like on the math side especially, right? So the idea is everyone, and voter intensity, and preference intensity is what I'd say. So I can't write anything, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so basically the idea is that the goal of quadratic voting is to not only give people the ability to express their preference, but also the ability to express the intensity of their preference. And this is just an extra layer on top. So exactly what Jeff said is that, you know, you can build up your voting power over time, and maybe like every day you get a voting token, you could say, right? This isn't exactly how it's been implemented. But if you really care about something, you might vote with a lot of your voting power, right? But your intensity of caring about that decreases with the more power that you put in. Whereas if you just want to vote on every single issue, you'd only have to spend a little bit of voting power, but you would get your preference signaled, right? And this is really powerful. But it's not generally used in the crypto scene because it requires an identity. And identities, the decentralized identities don't really exist at this point. I mean, there's people working on it, especially in this room. There's a few IDEN3 people that I see, or magical crypto wizards. Yeah?
Just a question. guy who created the company has his part of shares. There is a voting power, but in society.
Well, we all vote, right? Well, at least.
Why voting power? One person, one vote. No?
Yes, so one person, one vote is what we use right now. However, that only gives us preference. And preference, like, for example, let's say that we said, hey, who wants to go get pizza, right? Oh, you get one vote, and you can pick for pizza, Italian food, Japanese food, any of these things, right? And so if we do one person, one vote, we will get the one that makes the most people, it has the most, first choice votes, basically, right? But if we allow people to have 100 tokens and allow them to rate which ones are better, then we'll end up with the one that that brings the most happiness, as opposed, because you will have more diversity of influence, right? If someone hates Japanese food, they'll give that nothing, but they'll give all the other ones some, right? And so fewer people who hate that choice it'd be less likely to pick the one that a lot of people hate. Sorry, I'm making these examples up on the fly, but this is kind of.
It could be more fair because, if there's someone who's deathly allergic to all Italian food, then they would give 0 to that, and then it would actually change the weight more than if it was just one person.
Yeah, I mean, this is a governance concept.
But voting power is obviously given the situation that, corruption situation, that you want more voting power, you can get it in any way.
No, well, yes, so it depends on if it's a token that's for sale. It doesn't have to be.
It's not only about sale, it doesn't matter. You can vote, you can buy a vote just in the parties in our real life.
Yeah.
So, I don't see a point of voting power. For me, it's for me as a blockchain member,
Yeah.
It's what? They're talking about voting power?
Yeah, well, quadratic voting allows you to also include the intensity of the preference. So it adds in more signal. Where one person, one vote, you only get to understand the preference, but you don't get to understand the intensity of the preference. And to fight the plutocracy or the buying of votes is that the more intense your preference is, the less value it has, because it's a quadratic decay.
With the one person. You create your token, and in this case, the voting system can be based on another token. No?
I'm afraid I didn't fully understand the question, and I feel bad because anyone watching the live stream can't really hear, and I don't really care that much about quadratic voting, so I'm going to move on. But that is a huge concept in the radical markets. Yeah, I want to say that governance is really important here, and it's a totally unsolved issue, and we need lots of experiments around it. Quadratic voting is just one piece of governance that could be applied, but I think we need a stack of tools that can really start building different, and that we can experiment with. This next one is really exciting, and this was my favorite. This is, I think, the most important thing that Eric Posner and Glenn Weil brought in their book of radical markets, and it's often called Harburger tax. How many people have heard of Harburger tax? Okay, now who wants to explain it?
We don't have makes, so it's your turn.
Okay. So Harburger tax is something I'm very excited about. It's the idea of a public good that is, I would say, stewarded by somebody, right? And when they hold that public good, they actually have to set what the price is. And while they're holding this public good and setting the price, they're constantly paying a tax of the based off of the price that they set. But this public good is always for sale. So anyone can come in and then buy that from them and pay the tax, right? So you have, however, I could set the price really high, higher than I bought it for, and I could make a profit when it's sold. But if I set that price really high and I'm holding the object, then I'm constantly paying it like I'm renting it, right? So this has been applied very well because it doesn't require identity. In this art is always for sale by Simon de la Rouvier. And basically he created a piece of art that is digital. It's based off of a non-fungible token on Ethereum that you can hold in your Ethereum account, but you have to set the price. And someone bought it, and then someone else bought it, and then someone set a really high price. And they're constantly paying the tax. And in this case, the tax goes to the person who made the art, Simon. He's raking it in, right? But where Harburger tax gets really exciting is for public goods in society, right? Like think of Uber or Lyft or even better, you know those scooters, right? Those little scooters that people, they're illegal, you can't do it here now. But you know, in cities around the world, they have those scooters that you just find on the street and you can like kind of ride them around for $1 or whatever, right? Imagine a world where those were owned effectively like this Harburger tax, where if I want to use that scooter, I have to buy it for whatever price it is. And then I go and use it. I'm driving around, it's great, right? And then when I'm done with it, I set the price. And I could set it really high, and it would stay there for when I'm done eating lunch, right? But I would be paying a tax. Or I could set it really low, and someone else would probably take it, right? But where does this tax money go? Well, maybe it could actually go to fund the roads or fund making more bike lanes, right? Now, this is where we get into the governance aspect. Who gets to decide where this tax money goes, right? We just created a radical market with the Harburger tax idea, where these scooters effectively are owned by whoever is governing the tax, right? The output of the tax. And this is a huge opportunity for decentralized governance to practice and understand, but it's also a huge opportunity for society to experiment with new forms of taxation, new forms of public goods. And that's like the real piece here that I want to make sure you guys like leave with today. That we have an opportunity to build new types of models for society as a whole to realign incentives around supporting public goods, right? So the third object, well, does anyone have a quick question on Harburger taxes? Oh, wow, okay, that's surprising. Oh, yeah?
So if I am the owner of the scooter and I am paying whatever it is, I guess it's am I paying this constantly as a tax to this governance pool?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what happens if it breaks down when I am the owner of this?
Well,
the owner, so should I...
These are questions, right? Like, honestly, we don't know. Like, how do you even connect a digital ownership to a physical object, right? Like, these are huge questions. And what happens if it breaks down? Like, is there an insurance that is part of the taxes that the pool goes to? Is there somebody who gets paid to maintain these scooters from the tax, right? There's a lot of opportunity, and there's very little practice. So, yeah, I don't know.
Pay for it? Is it just a deposit that is locked somewhere?
It's exactly that.
So you will not be able to speculate.
Yeah. Well, you get to speculate on it because you get to decide what the price is. So let's say that you could walk around and you could find these scooters and be like, whoa, that one's super cheap, but it's really far from a railroad, you know, from a metro station. And what I could do is I could go drive to that scooter that's really cheap and then bring it to the center of Barcelona and give it a higher value, right? So you can actually speculate on it, but that speculation is actually delivering value to society at the same time, right? In fact, on your speculation, if you can take a low value object and put it in a high value area, you're generating more taxes for that common pool. So it's really a magical alignment of incentives that we don't see in public goods right now. That's why we need governments to create continuous funding models to support public goods. Okay, so now I want to talk about what actually bought all this food, which is kind of wild, right? Yeah. How do you spell it? Oh man, I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, I don't even know how it's really pronounced. I say Harburger because that's what Simon de la Riviere says, but it could be Harbinger. I've heard that too. So that's Harburger tax, and I'd really look at this art. This artwork is always for sale. Yeah.
When you talk about that it adds value to the system or the social system around it, what do you mean exactly by what kind of value is that? Is that do you mean like a practical value, like it makes things easier, or are you?
I'm talking quantitative, as in you're taking a low value item and making it a high value item, so then you're actually paying more taxes because your tax rate is based off the price you have. And that extra value also aligns with value for the society pool, the pool, right? Value for allowing easy transportation for people.
I like that example you used because it's what really piques my curiosity on the details.
Yeah.
So if what you're saying, right, there's like a really cheap object, scooter or whatever, on the other side of town, and you like go there, bring it back to the downtown, and then you can set a higher price for it. There is labor that you use for that, and wouldn't that create, so like, isn't that like sort of a service in a way that you do for people who can afford the expensive ones downtown?
Yeah, or they need it more, right? Like maybe if it's autonomous cars instead, and having them kind of far away but at a high price, they'll be, instead of an ambulance, you can just call the autonomous car, and you're like, I don't care what the price is, I need it. Maybe you set it really high because you plan on a nice road trip tomorrow, right? But then someone's wife is pregnant and they need to go to the hospital, they're going to pay that high price because they need it more. And so now we have a public object or a group of objects. It works best when it's many objects that are relatively fungible, that are relatively replaceable, that can provide a public good. Now, I really want to move on because I don't think I have much time. And we have this, I don't know if you guys have ever been part of a fishbowl, but it's really cool. Basically, I'll explain it later. Let's go back to common stack and token bonding curves. So how many people have heard of token bonding curves? Okay. Oh my God, yes, this is the popular one. Okay, so token bonding, I'm going to explain it because I have the mic. Token bonding curves are a very interesting model, right? Because I saw that a lot of people have been in the blockchain space, so they might have heard of ICOs and this sorts of things, right? And when you create a token, you're subject to the value of the market. So if you wanted to create a small token for just a small group of people that are trying to create their own economy, you have major liquidity issues. And a token bonding curve actually solves these liquidity issues, and it's especially valuable for smaller economies. So a token bonding curve could look like this, right? So where this is the reserve, the money people send to the token bonding curve, it goes into this reserve. And then this is the price right here. So you can see, as people send more money in, the price goes up. And when someone sends, let's say that we're here on the curve, let's just say $1. That's a nice number. It's easy. So you send in $100, and we're actually going to say we're right here. and we bring the price to here, right? I just don't want to do the math, but I don't want to lie to you either, right? So you send in $100 and you get 100 tokens. Oh my God, see, I'm so bad at this. Okay, you get 100 tokens. Now, this money doesn't go to a multi-sig or anything like that. It actually just stays in the reserve pool. Right? This is the simplest bonding curve. And 100 tokens are generated. And then if someone else sends 100 tokens in, these tokens were created out of nothing. The supply of the token actually went up, right? Now, when someone sends 100 tokens back in, the supply of the tokens will go down. Those tokens will be burned, and $100 will be sent out. So you just have this liquidity pool. This is how Uniswap works, with a little bit of complications on, right? There's a lot of projects that are starting to pop up with this, including the project that made this food. But the project that made this food, Protea, which is a really cool project, what they did is they put a tax here. They say that when you send in $100, you actually get 70 tokens, right? And that 30 of the dollars go over here to buy food for meetups. Cool, right? And so now, if you put in 100 tokens, you would actually get $100. If you put in 70 tokens, you only get about $70, right? So, however, there's this very interesting thing that no one talks about. It's like the crypto dirty little secret. It's called, I don't even know if it has a name. It should have a name. I call it the market cap illusion, okay? Because maybe there's actually let's say 10,000 tokens, right? But in this curve, maybe there's only $1,000. But if there's 10,000 tokens, the market cap is $10,000. And if someone sends in 70 tokens, they've moved the price from, let's just say, 95 cents to 105 cents, $1.05. They'll actually create, what is that, like $500 of value. Oh no, even more. They'll create $1,000 of value with $100. So it's a very interesting concept, and this is how all these things work. Like, this is how stocks work. This is how financial assets work. When you create a financial asset, someone gives you money, and then you're effectively creating value out of nothing and giving it back to them, usually also keeping some for yourself. This is like how ICOs create value out of nothing. It's really interesting, right? And you can do that at large scale if you can keep a liquidity. But you can't do that at small scale because you will never have liquidity. And so with token bonding curves, it's very interesting. We can actually create liquid markets because it's a one-sided market that always has value coming in. And we can actually put taxes into this market that fund a funding pool that can provide public service for all of the people that are participating in this market. So Kai, who's running the camera here, he bought in down here. It's kind of wild, right? Yeah. And then a bunch of other Givethers bought in too, right? And so now for him, how much did he put in, Kai?
10 DAI.
He put in 10 DAI, and how much is your DAI now? Or how much?
35 the last time I looked.
So now he's got 35 worth of DAI, right? And, 5 minutes, nice. And so, but that now this has so many issues, right? Like, Kai has 35 DAI. He could sell that DAI, and when he sells that DAI, the same issue here with this liquidity happens, right? That he sells 35 DAI, but he actually, whereas when someone was putting $100 in, it brought $1,000 worth of value to the other people holding tokens because the market cap went up, right? This is the market cap illusion, right? When he sells $35, we're just going to make up a number. Let's say that $350 of market cap is lost. So now, with this kind of setup, we actually have a race to exit is what we call it. So this is a very interesting tool, but it needs a lot of support, a lot of experimentation. But it allows communities to create currencies and markets with whatever whatever public funding they want it to go to, with liquidity. And that's where it's really valuable. And so at the Common Stack, I'll just make a clear board really quick here. With the Common Stack, we're doing something very similar, except we changed the rules a little bit. Kai, that schemer, Kai over here, he can't just sell his $35, right? In fact, we don't let anyone buy down here. We make everyone buy up here in a group of people right here, right? And we have this pool that goes, we'll just say, to a DAO. We have a very interesting governance model called conviction voting, which has some aspects of quadratic voting in it, right? And instead of having the tax in the beginning, we have the tax in two places. The people who bought this, who get a really good deal on the tokens, they have to put, let's just say 50%, some percentage, into the DAO as a donation up front, right? But then they get a sweetheart deal on tokens. Let's say that this token is 1 cent and this token is 3 cents, right? So they put in, let's just say 10,000 DAI, right? They get, what is that, 50,000 tokens, because half of it's going here, and the other 50,000 goes here, or the other 5,000 goes here. And now they have this fund right here. They have tokens of value right here, but these tokens are locked until they spend $50,000. What? But there's not only $5,000 there, right? Well, now that all of these tokens are locked until they spend $50,000, we have anybody can buy in or sell tokens in this other in the open phase. So now people know these tokens are locked, so you have this token bonding curve again. You have a bunch of Kais coming in. They're like, oh my God, it's super cheap right now. I can make a bunch of money, right? And so these speculators start playing around with this curve, and it goes up and down, right? But every time someone sells, we take a tax. Let's just say a 5% tax. Every time someone buys tokens, they put in $1, they get 1 token if the price is $1, right? But every time that they sell a token, they actually only get 95 cents. So you have kind of a tax here that is constantly funding this DAO. And so you have all these people who got a sweetheart deal. They're incentivized to play, but only if they're actually incentivized to solve the problem that this DAO is supposed to solve. Because they need to build an actual marketplace of people who also care about this problem. So the real value here is if this problem is, let's say, ending homelessness in Barcelona, right? Then people who care about ending homelessness, they can actually get a vote on where this money goes by buying this token. So if you're going to donate to a homeless shelter, instead of donating and giving your money away and getting nothing in return, because this is the misaligned incentives of the charity world, people who contribute to altruistic causes do so at a financial loss for themselves, because the market economy doesn't value that work. However, we're creating a radical market around it, where people who buy into this market, they get an asset of value. And you know what? They might lose money, but this is way better than donating, because they get a token of value when they buy in. And they can say, this homeless shelter that I wanted to donate to, I'm going to vote that it gets a portion of this money. So they can actually direct the funding of this economy to support the public good that they want to support. And the opportunity here is that people who are currently donating and getting nothing in return actually have the opportunity to capture some of the value that they're creating, because we created a market that is actually valuing in a very interesting way. And I didn't have much time, so I didn't really get to explain it all the way. But we are creating a market around helping the homeless of Barcelona. And this is a huge opportunity. Now, I'm out of time, but we have a Fishbowl panel, which is very interesting. Do you want to explain Fishbowl?
I would love to explain
Okay.
it. You want to give me your microphone?
Oh, yeah.
So excited that everybody had questions for this, because I love fully participatory events, and you all get to participate in this event. Because what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring 5 chairs up here to the front. So 1 or 2 of our Giveth folks, probably including Griff, and I'm just going to name Jeff over there and encourage him to come up here as one of our first panelists on the Fishbowl. So the way these Fishbowl-styled panel discussions work is we're going to put 5 chairs up here. We'll probably fill maybe 3 of them. I've got 2 people now. Is there anybody who has a question, a comment, something that they'd like to talk about a little bit more? I would love to invite you to come on up here and take a seat on our panel. So at any time during this panel conversation, and I'm going to encourage maybe Jeff or Griff to ask the other a question and get this panel started from a moderation perspective. So talking about the topics that Radical Markets engages and that Griff has just told you about, if you've got a question or a comment or something you want to share, please come on up here and take one of these empty chairs. Whenever you feel like your question has been answered, your comment has been satisfactorily received, I encourage you to step out of that seat, take your own seat, and leave a chair open for the next person to come in. So ideally, this is a conversation between all of you. There is so much wisdom, so much information that gets surfaced from our collective when we engage in this way. So we really don't want to talk at you. We want to all to have a conversation together. And I think this format really facilitates that. We have about 50 minutes for this first panel. We're going to do 2 different Fishbowl panels. The first one is very specific to radical market concepts. And we'll do this until probably roughly about 8:30. I'm very loose on exact times. And then we'll do a second panel, Fishbowl, at that time. And we'll start diving more into what's happening here in Barcelona. What are you all working on? And how can you share that with one another so we can get into the exchange part of this radicality? So do you guys feel like you need a microphone? Do you think we can do without this?
Do we have that one,
Let's
right?
try with the, yeah.
Okay,
One
yeah.
step on it, please.
I totally didn't even see it.
I know.
And one thing about Fishbowl panels, there's always going to be 1 seat open.
There are
So
2
when
seats.
anyone can sit in either of these seats, but if both of those get filled, somebody has to go sit down. Okay? So it's really fun. It's a fun little game. It's like musical chairs, but panel style, right?
So there's more space right now.
Yeah. So did you have a question?
About topics that you were speaking before. Well, about third topic, I mean, is it basically by smart contracts that you are working with Ethereum? You want to force MMM to serve good people.
What's MMM?
Pyramid MMM.
MLM.
MMM. The pyramid when, you know, the selling.
Oh, Ponzi scheme.
Yep. Yes.
So, I mean, at their core, if you just implement a bonding curve like how you think you would implement it, it is a Ponzi scheme. There is one app that's live right now, and they are very blatant that this is a Ponzi gambling scheme. It's called Proof of Weak Hands. It's a bonding curve that if someone buys in after you, your investment is worth more. This is an issue. But if we build these within contexts that rein in that behavior, because you can build just a default bonding curve and let people buy in and buy out. It's live right now, you can go do it if you want to make some money, if you're lucky. But it's basically gambling. It is a straight up Ponzi scheme. But if you implement checks and balances, we can create new paradigms of value that allow us to put not a price tag, but to value things like community, other than the bottom dollar that community produces.
And the key difference between a financial asset and a Ponzi scheme, because they effectively have the same thing, right? When more people buy in to Amazon stock, right, the value goes up more than the amount of money that was put in. The difference is that there is an actual value underneath Amazon stock, right? There is the Amazon company, which is issuing the stock and which the stock is representing its value in the financial world. And so that's also the same here, is that there is an actual community of people that have an asset that is trying to help the homeless of Barcelona. And it's a real thing with a financial asset representing it in the financial space.
Well, as I said, by smart contract, force the pyramids to serve and the good way.
But even, let's say, if you look at our economy, you could say everything is a pyramid scheme.
Yes, the bank system, the Amazon
Onions.
trading,
Onions.
Yeah, I understand.
Onions are pyramid scheme. At least if you use the definition of like selling the onion at a higher price to the next sucker, right? Because the farmer produces onions, they paid very little to produce them.
Okay.
Then they sell them to a distributor who raises the price and sells them to the grocery store, who then sells them to raises the price and sells them to the consumer, who actually just gets stuck with it and they eat it, right? They literally eat it. And if you want to talk, you have to come up here.
Yeah, should come.
I think it's also very important to remark that actually this token has a function within these communities, within this ecosystem. Okay, this is something that we haven't talked about, but because it may be seem very obvious to some of us, but at least in my view, that's the main thing, that when you are putting there incentive mechanisms so people can bring value from outside a system to a new system that is trying to look for creating common social value whatsoever, you are also giving privilege to these people to participate in that. Maybe have access to, some facilities in Barcelona, maybe have access to this meetup itself and being able to have a beer here, stuff like that, that if you're not participating in that, then you're, and I don't know if to say outside of that economy, but at least you don't have as much as privilege as the people that have already bought in before you. And also, and this is mainly what Griff was talking before about the quadratic voting and stuff, you also have decision power on the community directions. What do you have the community to do? What do you have the community to spend their resources on? You are part of a bigger something that only the fact that you are participating in these Ponzi schemes are leaving you to do that, and there's where the real incentive is coming from the intrinsic incentive in belonging to something that really worth in its real value.
And I understand about what you were speaking, the voting power. Yeah, well, voting power. Now I understand, because of depends how much you donate.
Or in this case, in quadratic voting, it doesn't have to. Quadratic voting, it's like, they can say, you as a person, you get 1,000 votes voting power per year. And if you only care about abortion rights, then you put it all on that because that's what you care about. And you don't really care about whether we should open up trade with, whoever. So you get to signify the intensity that you care about topics.
There is more question.
Yeah.
So in this scenario of quadratic voting, sorry, I got it here a little bit late, so I didn't get the whole thing. So say it's like 1,000 voting power, right? That you get or whatever. What's the role of everything that, in the same way that political campaigns and the media and everything influences our opinions and things, how is that solved in the quadratic voting system?
Jeff, you want to take it?
Did you step up here to answer that? Or?
No,
Okay.
I can just
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, quick refresh on the question.
Yeah, so say you have 1,000 votes, and as you said, like you really care about abortion, but it's not just your decision making that influences what you care about.
Right.
It's the society and also people in power who can influence what you want or what you think is important.
For sure. So I think there's a lot packed into these conversations around radical markets. We are presupposing entirely different voting systems, and a lot of us are used to thinking one person, one vote is kind of democracy, and that's the end of it. One person, one vote actually leads to tyranny of the majority, and you can see this in lots of different situations. So we need to be able to allow people to display the intensity of their preference, not just a binary 1-0, but a percentage. I am 100% behind this, I'm 0% behind this, I'm 25% behind this. That's what one token, one vote offers, but we need to have some checks and balances with allowing everything to be dictated by the bottom dollar, which in blockchain today is mostly the case. So quadratic voting helps to balance that a little bit. We're also, in these new voting systems, we would probably implement something like liquid democracy. So liquid democracy allows you to entrust your vote to someone that you think could make it better than you. So if my uncle was a doctor, perhaps I would give my healthcare vote to him, and maybe he would give it to his chief of staff because he's more up to date on what decisions need to be made as a society with regards to healthcare. So we're packing a lot into these concepts, and definitely needs a little bit of unpacking. But ideally, with liquid democracy, you would have a social graph, and trust would flow to those people in the graph that deserve that trust, because we want to hear everyone's voice, but we want to hear the people that know the most and are trusted the most on that topic more than others, right? We want a pilot to fly the plane, not a passenger who knows nothing about piloting. We understand that expertise has a place in society, but we also need to hear everyone's voice. So hopefully through something like liquid democracy, you would allow that kind of imbalance. The trust would flow to, exactly. You would have almost like a bottom-up delegate system rather than our current politics where you have a few political candidates drop down and you can choose between them. We have grassroots delegates. Maybe I can choose to cast my vote myself if I think I'm educated enough, but I can also delegate that to a friend. He could delegate that to someone he trusts, and eventually you have some people with a large voice, some people with a medium-sized voice, and some people just with their own voice. And you kind of enable a bottom-up political system rather than a top-down political system.
Again, I got here a little bit late. Sorry if this was already said or thought about. Is your votes or your decision making in the process, is it also like every few years or a few months or anything like, or could it be also a system where at any point in time you can revoke your that's it?
So liquid democracy, the idea behind that is that it's liquid. If I give my trust to you and you do something that I don't like, you as my delegate, I have a mobile push notification. We're talking far future here. Your delegate voted against this thing that you wanted him to vote for. Oh, well then I take my trust and I can either cast my vote myself or give it to someone else I trust. So ideally in the future you would have almost continuous voting. Now you have to be careful with that because
Yeah. No, but I'll still listen.
Yeah, ideally voting would be continuous rather than having to take place every 4 years or any period of time.
We can have 5 people for a few seconds on there, so don't worry.
I really like this system. I had never seen it before. So.
I think my question is like I see the curve, and I think maybe a question that arises is that it doesn't. My voice, I'm sorry, is it not loud?
No, it's okay.
Louder.
So my question will be like, in this curve, like if I put, for example, 20, and some people, so the community grows and the community grows, and I want to go get my tokens back. Probably there are more than I currently started with. So what do I get in return? Will I get the full thing in what I invested, or how do I get payout?
I mean, in the simple systems that we're using now, like the bonding curve that was used for this event, for example, if you bought in before most other people and then you sell, you would get your money back plus whatever your investment has grown by. So Kai mentioned he put in 10 Dai, now it's worth 30 Dai. So if he sold right now, he would get 30 Dai out. He would make an investment or a profit of 200% over his initial investment. But I mean, this isn't really the point behind them. We're still very early in the development of these systems. We're not doing it just to extract a profit from the community. So hopefully we can build in perhaps Kai is now eligible due to his long-standing membership in this community for additional perks, free entrance to different events or anything like that.
So I just to ending like, so, and that also paid the food? Is that what?
Yeah. So yeah, actually that food was bought because, well, Kai, when he bought in the bonding curve, he put 15 Dai in, but only got 10 Dai worth of tokens. So 5 Dai went to buy this food. But Kai knew he was going to make a profit because, he started the bonding curve. So like, when you buy in early on a bonding curve, you're pretty well set that you're going to make some money, as long as other people buy in after you. Now the challenge we have here is that these are tools. Like we mentioned liquid pledging. Giveth uses liquid pledging on the back end, which is like liquid democracy. So we have liquid democracy. We have bonding curves. We have Harburger taxes. We have quadratic voting. We have all these tools. And we build really complex systems with these tools. But we need to actually take this seriously. Building complex systems is not that easy. And when you build complex systems in the normal world, I'm a chemical engineer by training, and we're building power plants, right? Yeah, you don't build the power plant off of a white paper, right? You write a white paper, you say what what you want to build a power plant for, but then you design it in a computer and you simulate it. And we're really excited for building these systems with these checks and balances after simulating them and seeing what problems we run into. So we can actually use software to simulate closed economies that we can create with cryptocurrencies. It's really wild, and it's a major piece I forgot to mention when I was talking, because with cryptocurrencies, we can actually design systems that can be simulated, economies that can be simulated. In the real world, right, in the default world, I should say, when you create an economy, basically anyone can do anything with that currency or with the value that that economy sits upon. And then you have a regulatory agency that says what you can't do. You can't do X, Y, and Z, and guess what? You really can as long as they don't see it, right? But in the crypto economies that we build, The rules are the rules. You can only do what the code says you can do as long as there's no bugs, right? So audits are important. But in theory, you can only do what the code says you can do. So you can actually formalize that in math. You can put it into computer software. You can simulate different actors in Monte Carlo simulations, doing like all the random things that you could imagine. And you could see, oh, Kai's going to make a bunch of money at the beginning. He's going to extract value. We need to redesign this economy and realign the incentives. Put something in there so Kai's not taking everybody's money, right? Yeah.
Two questions. Let me see if I fully understood this. As somebody who cares about what this DAO is doing, homeless people in Barcelona, the main motivation for me to use this instead of just giving my money to an NGO is that I can actually not make a profit, but maybe at some point take back almost all the money I put, maybe in some case, right? Fine. If that is true, then there seems to be a fundamental problem here that is not related to tweaking the parameters or anything like this, which is eventually when a lot of people have put a lot of money, this curve is basically flat. I'll need €1 million extra, which basically means that I've lost my incentive to bring more people in as opposed to just paying an NGO, right? I don't know if that is a fundamental question or not, fundamental problem or not.
Well, whenever someone comes in, the price is always going up. So this price doesn't asymptote, it does continually rise. So
slower.
It just gets, it rises slower as it goes, right? And so there is always this extra incentive, right? But in the end, if you're donating to the homeless of Barcelona, right, you could donate straight to an NGO, but if this system exists, this is what you would use because you get an asset of value in return.
Yeah, but do you agree that if I now manage all these people here to put €10, my initial investment, I've made an initial investment, I convince everyone to put €10, my initial investment is going to happen. I'm going to take my money back now. And I'm fully incentivized to do that. But if I manage to convince all the people here in 2 years from now that lots of people in Barcelona is already using this, then basically my initial investment will not see any change at all.
Well, what's interesting about this system is that it's not in a vacuum, right? So someone else can make another system that's like, let's not say doing the same thing, let's say feeding the homeless of Barcelona, right? This is sheltering the homeless or homeless in general. And then you have another system that's just copy, paste, deploy. I want to feed these people, right? And so we can actually have competing governance systems, right? These people who hold these tokens, if they're making good decisions, then the people who want to fund it, that want to donate to help the homeless, they'll probably keep putting it there. And the value that they put in, will be retained.
I know what you mean. It feels to me like it will be trying to continue the Ponzi scheme with creating another alternative to basically do it.
There's one more thing.
Sorry,
on the same topic.
I hope I'm wrong, because at the end of the day, I will have put my money because I care about what this DAO is doing, right? But I hope that these incentives somehow manage to grow.
If we're only thinking in economical incentive, there's somebody else. You're saying that you're putting somewhere, and then the curve is pretty much flat, and you're not incentivized. So at the point where the curve is almost flat, that means that there's somebody that went in here, and it's now flat. For him, this is the moment where he cannot get more profit. So at this point, he'll go up. He'll exit, and he'll make a good profit. Making this go down a bit, and making it profitable in theory for somebody else to go in here, because there's more slope to the curve, so somebody else could go in again, and they could put money.
I get the point. I think that's a very good answer. I think that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. One commentary and one question. The commentary is there are almost no flat, and you will maybe not meet in your life the flat of this system. It's a simple formula. We have a great example in history in Russia 30 years ago. Guy almost took control half of the Russian population with this system and almost become a president. But they put him to the prison, the government. This is a commentary. And well, this is what I said.
Can you tell us more about that? That sounds interesting.
Mavrodi. Nobody knows Mavrodi system? Really? That's pity. Well, I can tell you more about this later. But the question, why Ethereum? Why I'm asking this? Because, well, I'm not super blockchain specialist, but the says about Ethereum, it's like something history. Great idea, perfect, smart contract, but I mean, the now who is working in real project people, they're building their course, they're building their platforms, their system. I'm in team of one of these platforms. Liquid democracy, liquid voting, I mean, there is not fit there. There should be changed much more things. It cannot work in Ethereum, it's like for sure. I know what I'm talking about in this case. So why Ethereum? Why you're not going to...
I agree completely.
I mean, I saw many projects.
Giveth actually uses bridges. So we have a liquid democracy system for donations. So you can donate to a cause.
Maybe different opinion, what is it?
Hold on. So you can donate to a cause and you can delegate authority over your donation to someone you trust to donate to another cause, but then you can veto their donation, right? And we built that in Solidity, but it actually runs on a side chain, and we bridge the value from Ethereum. So when people donate, they donate in Ether or DAI, and then they can, then we use a bridge to go to a side chain, and then we actually do the expensive, Solidity, we pay all the transaction fees on the side chain, which right now we're using Rinkeby, so it's free. And so we do all this stuff over here, and then when someone wants to get paid, they use Ethereum. They receive money on mainnet, but we do all the stuff on the sidechain. And we expect to, currently our expectation is to do this on XDAI, which is a sidechain of Ethereum, and we use the bridge. But the value of using Ethereum is that there's a huge community. There's a lot of value on that chain that can be used for these systems. And there's a lot of infrastructure that's already built. Auditing smart contracts in Solidity is by far the most developed for writing secure code. There's other smart contracts like EOS, for instance, but their systems of development, they're much younger. And so we have a lot more infrastructure to build upon in Ethereum. However, I'm not an Ethereum maximalist at all. I don't really care what chain it goes on. For me, it's like being like crypto tribalism is like saying, oh, I'm only going to develop an app for iPhones. I won't develop apps for Android users because, I'm an iPhone maximalist. Like in the end, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. You care about the use case. You care about the application. So I'm going to continue to develop on Ethereum because that's where I know people, number one, and the tools are really easy. But if something better comes along, I'm jumping ship. Our goal is to iterate as much as possible. In fact, the common stack that's doing this, we're going to build 4 of these things. One with just the token bonding curve, then one with the Giveth dApp integrated into the token bonding curve, then another one with the complex governance thing. And we're going to analyze all of these things. And if there's a problem with Ethereum or there's an opportunity to go to a different chain, we'll look at that and maybe we'll build the 4th one on a different chain. And then we'll continue. Do you have a chain that you especially like?
No, we have our chain.
Oh, you have your own private chain?
So it's like what? I mean, first, even how I joined to the team that I'm in now and to this chain, we were looking for the blockchain solution. And yes, first is Bitcoin, like many years ago. After it's Ethereum, but this chain for us, in my opinion, and of course we have maybe different opinion about liquid democracy. These chains cannot give all the tools. So, and I see it. I mean, I visit a conference, blockchain conference, in universities, companies, they're working on another course, because this one, yes, smart contract, but it's not solution. Well, as we see, and it's why we made our platform. Okay, understand that when you find something better.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to the address of the MLM question on bonding curves. So, in my opinion, the reason I think that bonding curves are useful is not in the input-output of currency exchange. That's great, automated market makers, fantastic things, make life easy. But all that does is carry on a top-down pattern of command and control. Whereas around a community, that's where real value is, because there's trust lines, there's trust nodes, you would say maybe. So the people within community, like Kai here, has not fleeced the market yet. That's why this event worked. However, I'm not so sure that bonding curves will work out in the old world, in the banking world. It certainly works for value flows within communities because the trust lines establish a base to leap from.
I would agree completely. I think it's more token bonding curves have way more value for small, like Dunbar number size communities versus like, you know, if you have a big market, you don't necessarily need a token bonding curve.
You don't know where actors are going to act.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly.
And I think that the challenge in terms of design of those bonding curves that we are talking about will be really, really big. For example, he was talking about how much this will grow. Is growing infinitely, is growing asymptotically, stuff like that. And I think that it will depend a lot of the kind of community that you will be approaching, the kind of purposes that these communities will have behind them, the kind of commons that you are targeting to put in this pool of resources and so on. And honestly, I can just imagine a couple of things about how this curve will be, but I think that we should give ourselves a chance to now understanding all this stuff, because the work that is in front of us will be actually very, very complex and complicated. But there is really amazing people here that are working really, really, really hard to make all these kind of things really simple and to have sense to the common people out there, no? So the user experience will be really weird. I'm pretty sure we don't have a far idea about how this all will work and how this all will fit its position in their market. But this is powerful. I mean, this is really big. And even if we don't understand, let's give this thing a real opportunity, because this will work.
So for me to really understand this, I needed to do it. Like, Giveth is a decentralized, altruistic community. So I come to Giveth because I want to give a gift. I don't actually expect anything back. So it was actually really difficult for me to get my head around that why is the token bonding curve and why is giving people value back important, because you're giving to something that's going to create something powerful and have a social impact, have a powerful impact in the world. That impact, it seemed to me, ought to be enough. But it's not. It's not. Because some of us, we give, and then one day we're like, I actually need to receive. So like starting the Giveth Gathering community for here, I wanted to make sure that what I care about happens, that we hold an event here that brings people together and your stomachs aren't rumbling and you're like, I gotta go because I'm really hungry. Somebody has to cover the hard costs of us coming together and connecting with one another so that we can exchange with each other in a healthy way and be nourished by that. And I see that this token bonding curve provides that And it's still, it conflicts with me just a little bit because I feel like a gift ought to be a gift. So giving a gift in this case, where I bought into this event because I wanted to give the gift of feeding and buying beer for everybody. Now, I not only see that I was able to provide this event and cover those base needs here, but I also have half of that available to do this again. So by giving my gift in this way, I not only met the needs of this community here now, I'm also meeting the needs of it in the future. And that's regenerative, and it's really powerful. And I didn't get it until I built it and got to actually live that out here today and see what that looks like. And it's really the thing that I think has so much power here, that we can recognize when we give our gifts collectively, we're not only actually able to take care of ourselves here right now, we're able to take care of future generations in really powerful ways. And I'm going to be honest, I don't get the math behind it. I look at it and I'm like, okay, I see that Kai bought in before me. Now he has more. Is that fair? Is that okay? You know, I don't actually worry about that too much because we're a community. And if it actually looks like Kai's making a run on it, we're all going to kind of thump Kai and be like, dude, you're buying the beer tonight. Ultimately, what I see is this tool helps us hold one another accountable. Accountable for the change that we all want to see in the world. And I'm excited to see these communities coming together around whatever changes they are that we each want to see in the world. Because we get to give to it and see an impact now and see an impact later. And so I just really wanted to share that with all of you, that even working with Giveth and being here just to give, now I'm able to receive more, which makes it possible for me to give even more and take care of myself, and that's really awesome.
Can I piggyback off that?
Please, but can I just say I'm watching the clock a little bit, and I just want to say we got about 15 more minutes to really dial into these elements of the radical markets, and then I want to talk about some really Barcelona-specific stuff for us.
Do we want to take a break for food too and let people eat?
So that's what I was feeling like, is maybe we could finish this up in 5-10 minutes and take a small break, and then we'll come back and do another fishbowl that's really locally focused. Because
5 to 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
So
piggyback.
just on that, like giving gifts, right? It's really interesting that people who their gifts are valued by the market economy get a lot more in return than, let's say, artists, you know? Or like if you're a developer and you love developing and you love solving problems for people, man, you're going to do great. You're going to get a bunch of gifts in return because you have a marketable skill. You have a marketable skill, right? Because it fits the markets that we live in. But now we have the tools to create markets for value that isn't already marketable. You know, if you love helping the homeless, right, this can help you actually get a better wage because there's money there for who can help the homeless the best. And you can actually quantify this qualitative, value. You do it in a very interesting, crazy way. I tried not to talk about math, but it's hard, right? But that's the real magic here, is that people who give back value, we can start building markets around the value that they're giving and reward them.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so I've been with Giveth for about 2.5 years, and so we started with token bonding curves and common stack and all these things about 6 months ago or something like that. We just started discovering it through an article from Jeff, who was up here before. And I just wanted to say, if you're hearing, I do not get any of this, that is completely normal, because I think Griff had to explain it with all the designs and all the graphs and all the stuff 5 times to me before I started to get it. I did trust it because I trust Griff. But I just wanted to say, first of all, also after this, please ask us questions. If you have a question, even right now, come up here. Also go to, if you go to giveth.io or you go to medium.com/giveth, you can actually find a lot of articles that go, if you're interested in the math, you can go into math. If if you want to understand the bigger picture, there's a number of articles there as well. So you'll find lots of resources there to get in it more. And we also have lots of videos on our YouTube channel. So I do communications, maybe that was clear by now. Just wanted to say that.
Last thing. Sorry for critics, too much critics.
No.
Okay, the system, for example, about the DAO to help homeless. That's a beautiful idea. And is it working like we have some, or there is some Barcelona department, the government Barcelona department that connected to your system has its account, and by smart contract, when people are voting, that's directly just because of coding going to their account. Is it like this?
No.
Or there is still someone in charge?
So the way that this is why we built Giveth actually. So Giveth is a traceable donation platform that can interface with the crazy blockchain wild stuff that happens out there. So that when the DAO here votes, they don't actually just give money to people. The money can go into a milestone and then sit there until the job is done, right?
But is it now like this? It's the government department connected to your system?
Well, I mean, this system doesn't exist yet, and
it's an idea.
yeah, this is still this. Yeah, I mean, we used a bonding curve without a DAO. I think the money just went to Dani, I think, right?
Someone is charged.
Yeah, money goes to Dani,
Somebody has
and
to be
she
the
gets
banker
to choose
right
it.
now in
No,
the system.
But
right now,
in the
however,
system the way it is now.
her being in charge is an Ethereum address, and so if we wanted to, we could build a DAO that replaces her key with a smart contract that has some sort of governance where, you know, there is something more decentralized. However, I would never say that we have decentralized governance down. I think it's going to take a lot of experimentation and a lot of hand-holding for a DAO with a voting system. They're going to need leaders and a culture and policies and procedures that actually allow this good decisions to be made. Because decentralized governance sucks. It doesn't work right now. So.
That's all.
Well, should we eat?
Anyone, any burning questions? Anything anybody feels like hasn't, like, just anything else you want to share here on this particular system?
So I have a question for Griff. Kind of building on what Dani said about, like, I work at Giveth, and I've been explaining the token bonding curve several times, but I think I kind of get it now. I get most of it. Definitely don't get the math yet. Like Dani said, I don't quite understand the math. So if we think of the Dunbar rule of, you know, it really has the biggest impact on small communities, sort of Dunbar size, then we have to trust in the math to some extent, which I think the average person who's not studying token bonding curves may not get or even care to get, right? They just want to trust that it works. So how do you envision that getting to that point where communities of, say, 150 people or less start to use such tools? Or is it that the tools will be sort of templated so that communities can say, yeah, I want to take that kind of token bonding curve to apply to my community, and I know because it's been used 100 times already that it works, and that's what we're going to apply. Where's the point where the communities can trust that? Is it the individual in that community that sets it up? How do we get to that point?
I mean, I think the biggest thing with technology in general is for it to take any kind of, for it to have use in society, it really has to be 10 times better than what's already being used. And you don't necessarily have to trust the math. I mean, you don't have to understand the math to trust it. We don't understand WhatsApp's encryption, right? We don't really think about, oh, well, actually, it isn't encrypted, but they're holding one of the keys. We don't really care because no one even cares to research that because, you know, I just want this person to know what I'm up to because I'm coming at home for dinner, right? Like, and that's better than calling them. So we're going to use WhatsApp, right? We don't need to know how the encryption works. And with this system, for instance, if you're donating to a cause and getting nothing in return, even if you don't understand the math and you want to donate to that cause, well, you're better off here because at least you will get something in return, right? Maybe you'll lose money, but our bar of 10 times better is like pretty easy to achieve because you're getting nothing in return usually. There are a lot of people who actually want to use this for-profit industries. Because you can create a market around anything, even if there's already a for-profit market using it. Thibaut is like, he has this continuous organizations white paper, which is magical, and I really advise that you guys look into it. But I think they have a much harder challenge because there's already a market for-profit companies, right? They can succeed in the market. It's always easier to create your own economy, right? It's always easier to create your own economy and succeed because if you can, I mean, I just want to throw out an example. Like, how many people have heard of Primecoin? Has anyone heard of Primecoin? How about Namecoin? Namecoin? No? Oh yeah, we got some more Namecoins. Like these are like Namecoin was the first fork of Bitcoin, right? They created an economy around DNS registration. So basically, anyone can use Namecoin to register a .bit domain. And no one can stop you. So you have censorship-resistant domain registration, right? Now, no one uses it. Like, no one gives a fuck. Right? It's like, okay, cool. Like, no one uses Namecoin. But that service still survives. If it was a charity or if it was a for-profit company, a startup, it would have failed. It has no users. But it's not. It's an economy. It's an economy that spits out censorship-resistant domain registration. And so if you can create an economy around any system, like Primecoin is finding prime numbers. Who cares about prime numbers, right? Well, they found 34 million of them, right? Because they built an economy around finding prime numbers. No one cares. It's an unstoppable economic machine. Now, this system takes this idea of building digital economies around digital causes and tries to pull it into the analog world. It's going to be a challenge, right? For sure. But we have a lot of potential. And I think that's what makes it possible is that it can be 10 times better than the current system. Okay, I'm sorry. Can we eat?
Yeah. So I'm going to erase this whiteboard and encourage you to pick a color that matches your project. Something you're doing here in Barcelona that you want people to know about. While we take about a 10-minute break and then come back to have another fishbowl, I want to encourage you all to share information with one another. Remind yourself what you want to talk about later in the second fishbowl. Write something up here on this board to communicate exchange of information, ideas, projects, collaboration.
Is the second fishbowl a different theme?
So the second fishbowl, the first fishbowl, we're talking about radical markets, we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about digital things, money, everything that's in the ether. The second fishbowl is to bring this a little bit to the ground here in Barcelona. We at Giveth, we have a home quarters, I guess I would call it here. No? Okay. Our hacker space is here, and we converge here regularly to meet. But most of us are kind of nomadic, moving around a little bit. And we're bringing together people here in Barcelona, but those of you who are here working on the ground, ideally we want you to connect with one another. So this second fishbowl is hopefully you have some ways that these concepts we've talked about can apply on the ground, and we can talk about that. How can we apply some of these things to the projects that you're working on and connect you a little bit? And then at the very end of this, what I'd actually like to really do is bring it back to radical exchange just a little bit. For those of you who are into it and here, we brought together a great group of people on this conversation. I'd love to see the conversation continue with somebody converging people regularly to grow and collaborate on them. So with that, I'll leave some markers, let's get some food and cocktails, and we'll come back at 1:45. so grateful you are here. If we don't bring up critical thinking and really challenging things amongst one another, we're not doing our job.
Okay, then as I understood, you were in charge of...
I am in charge of nothing. But I am organizing this event to the extent that I'm making sure that everybody who comes knows what we're doing and hopefully gets what they can.
Because, well, at least the main people working on all of this want to bring really good things for folks and would like to believe in it, that this is people who made ideas. Do you think this is
We start the fishbowl? Yeah, both, please. You are all so invited.
All yours.
Cat herding is real. And so is this pizza.
This is pizza.
I want to elaborate on a distinction. What we've been talking about and looking at, the commons and the token bonding curve. There's a very real token bonding curve and community happening right now. And we did this on gather.protea.io. And there's some pretty wonderful part. Oh, I have a whiteboard.
Yeah.
I love this. So, I'm going to write this up here. And if any of you are interested in contributing to our evening together, gather.protea.io. So we're covering the hard costs of us coming together, of the space being here, and us being nourished, and feeling relaxed now and able to share about our own projects. So I would really love to invite any of you who want to come check in with somebody with a Giveth sticker to learn more about how to engage in our little experiment here tonight and continue coming together in this way, sharing our spaces. But also, let's find out what you guys are working on right now. I really want to hear about what's going on, how you think some of what you've heard might apply, how you might start your own communities, or bring the communities that you have on the ground into these virtual spaces to practice some of these tools. So, part of me wants to name a few people, but I'm not going to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cheers. Please come up, join me in this circle, and let's talk about whatever we were talking about in our little groups for about half an hour, and then we can continue our small group conversation because there's more refreshments on the way.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever project you work on, so don't be shy, just do whatever you share.
Nobody has projects. Can it be a project you want to work on?
Oh, dreams are good. We got a lot of builders in here, builders and dreams. Fiddlers. Fiddlers, nodlers. Hello, Adrian.
I don't think so, please, because if someone
I'm not
has
leaving,
watched
man.
it-
I just got it.
It's
I was really hoping this would happen, actually.
So do we launch the questions or the projects to the void and see what comes back?
You have people to talk to here.
Okay.
Would you like some feedback from your panel?
Probably. Okay. I have very basic understanding of what has been talked about here today, and I feel like it's maybe I'm wrong. I feel like it's interesting that somebody who really doesn't know what any of this stuff is about and is seeing it and learning it for the first time, what my doubts are and what my questions are. So I'm going to start with one of my projects. I have my work is I have a small video production company. We do exclusively educational videos because it's a market that in a way has a lot of the substance knowledge in it. So like editors who make the books for learning or like for teaching math, history, all that stuff. There are people who have done this for many, many years. They've studied for this. They know exactly what the method of teaching is, right? But they don't have the technical capacity. So that's where we come in. We know how to make videos. We know how to make them entertaining. And in a way, that's our business model is we also know a little bit of their world, right? So my question for the panel is, in the same way of how I am the technician for, in a way, for these people, and they can access me, right? They can use our services to make their ideas come to life. How accessible is this stuff? How, and that's why I wrote on the whiteboard, because I saw nobody wrote anything on the whiteboard. How accessible is this to, and talking about local stuff, how accessible is this to a Barcelonian that is worried about an issue? They have never heard of the blockchain. They've never heard of, they're not an IT person. They're not a developer. What is it, how do you guys think that process can be implemented into the masses?
I can maybe respond to that in the sense that the reason that we're explaining this here today and that we're doing this in general, like just communicating to anyone who's interested in it, is because we want to get more people in to like build the solutions and also build all these layers in between that still need to be built. And that's gonna go slowly. So I think to answer your question, we're not ready for your project yet, whatever that project is. And that is, I think that's an important thing to say because, yeah, this is gonna take time because we're trying to build really robust systems that are future-proof and that cannot be tampered with and that are safe and that, like, as Griff said, like, you don't care about the math behind it, you just want it to work. And in order for a decentralized system that is not just like owned and operated by Facebook or Google or whatever in the world, but just by protocols, a layer of protocols, that takes time. So we're talking of like a process of 10, 20 years, who knows. Some things will probably start showing up in the real world in like a year or 3, and it depends how specialized you are. So it will be going slow. But I think it's important that we talk about it and that you know about it for your project so that you can already know there are solutions coming. And this is the future, or the future that we at least believe in, that's going to make the world a better place. So we hope to inspire you and maybe think like, okay, I'm going to organize my project in such a way so that I'm ready for when that technological layer is to just like put my stuff on top of it and it'll be shared with the world and I will contribute to that movement. So I don't know if that helps.
Long answer. It is. No, it is 100% inspiring, honestly, and especially coming from someone who really doesn't know much about this. I was talking with our Russian friend. What's his name again?
Doesn't matter. Russian guy.
Okay.
I don't think there are many.
Our Russian friend earlier, and it is honestly super inspiring for somebody who doesn't really know.
As I understand, the idea is to how to educate people in the blockchain area.
Well,
we have specialists. I don't think why it's need to take 10 years, 20 years. No, we have specialists who can explain in easy way. I mean, there's many videos actually about how that explaining to people how blockchain working, why it's good, and blah blah blah. But of course, to people. Local people to join it, we need show the good stuff. I mean, give a product for them just to use. Well, it's a crowd.
It's everyone.
They just give them PayPal, they use it. They don't care what is it. It's comfortable, good. So, in fact, the volunteers, the people who believe in good, like, for example, the idealists, can create a project that talking about painful topic. For example, like I write here, I found that I can grow up cannabis in my home. I started to search about this, and I found that it's a great problem here. What I mean a great problem? That a lot of that is legal and not legal. There is cannabis shop, there is no cannabis shop, there is great black market. Okay, we have a blockchain idea, the blockchain technology, that can show all the transaction from the seed growing up to the customer. Then we can make a association that based on blockchain, that totally transparent, that people, everyone can see what's going on in this association. I don't think there is many associations like this in Barcelona. And then we can give this solution to government. This will make a boom. Blockchain doesn't need 3 years, 10 years. It needs boom that will show that it's solving the problem. Just do this with people who is excited about this, who want really change stuff, like actually the road in Meetup.
If I may, there's a theme here. My friend, not you, but the one previously to my right, mentioned layers between what we have now in the world. You've mentioned something that will create a boom, something possibly related to cannabis, and all these things. None of these things. The user wouldn't necessarily know the blockchain is involved. At this point,
care.
Yeah, exactly. It's like HTTP. No one gives a shit. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that works. That's how this is going to get its tipping point, which is disappointing, honestly, because if they really knew what it was, we'd have a much more, I don't know, interesting world. But that's how we get our tipping point.
And we do have this kind of bias that people won't understand something because of the way, for example, now if we need to understand this system better so we can build on it, we get this impression that's really, it's really complicated, or probably on the math part we do have to have some basis for that happening, but it's really easy to teach people when it's in their environment, when they already have the capacities of this technology, they already have it tangible in their work or in their field. You don't need like token mounting curves to explain to someone that if you work really hard, he will be rewarded on the long term. If he found more people to support its cause, the cause will be of bigger value. This kind of this is the technological base. But you can explain to people about it like in their really easier terms. So you don't need like this 10 years curve to onboard people. They probably can learn because they will want to learn why this technology is better than the old accounting, for example. This is something that they will.
If I may, respectfully, I actually disagree with that. I think that. Okay, for example. I have no idea how a car works whatsoever. I have no interest in learning how it works. And despite my amazement that there's 500 horses in this thing, I don't care. I don't think the word blockchain is ever going to be a non-specialist word. It's just going to be a background technology that stuff runs on.
Yeah, but if I may here, when we talk about what are we doing now as regards this technology that is obviously the future, I think that the big challenge that we all should start working on right now is on the mindset of we as markets. Okay, we were talking about markets since the very beginning, and the markets are led by people that are conscious or not, if you know what I mean. Okay, so in these places we find a lot of conscious people. Okay, and this is all about creating consciousness about what's going on around, what is coming in the future. No, so the big challenge that we all should be tackling is the cultural aspect of all this shit, if I may use that word, but.
Yeah, I think that like that cultural assimilation or bridge is never going to be made with this mindset of like we have to wait for a boom or just time where there's going to or creating a boom or there's going to be a magical moment when something that we do as the blockchain community, finally the people like get it and they finally listen to us and realize, and the little people are like, oh, we should have blockchained all along. I think that's like, of course I'm dramatizing this scenario and not to diminish, but I don't hear a lot of people in this panel right now talking about actual on-the-ground communities, and that's what Danielle invited us to do. And now I'm not from Barcelona, so I don't feel that I'm particularly in a position to speak on the communities or projects here, but I am a very like community involved human person in the places that I am deeply connected, and I know all sorts of radical spaces that need this and yet like are nowhere near it because we are attempting to do this like we're gonna build everything without you and get it really good ready for you and then we'll give it to you, and it's not gonna be right. I mean, they have seen that happen so many times and then people hand them this tool that's supposed to like be a saving grace, and it's like, well, actually, what we don't need more like running water time in our village. We actually have a great system of turning it off for 18 hours of the day, and what we need is a system to like clean the water when it is on, and you just, it's like all these great examples of situations where like the builders just end up building something that's completely useless to the majority of people, and we are such a minority. Like people who know about blockchain are a small percentage of the world. People who are building. So
I may have a live use case, like a profitable one. So I'm not too qualified to speak on this yet. It's a project I just joined, which is full disclosure. But essentially, what it is there's an issue in third world markets, ours being Africa, which is that there's a ton of trade deficit because nobody will lend money. Right? There's no trust, people run away, stuff like that. And so you have to like leverage your entire house, and you can only get like what your house is worth. You can only double your own net worth. It creates a lot of stops and halts. And of course, blockchain is trust. That's essentially what it is, right? It's computerized trust, just like the internet is computerized communication. That's the whole thing. And I'm not going to get into the depth of how it works because that's not what we're here for, but we've done 2 shipments so far, run on the Robson testnet. It's running on right now test Ethereum, eventually it'll be our own crypto, but whatever. And it works. It's profitable, it costs less than current shipping. Yeah. And they have no idea that it's blockchain, it just works.
They don't need, I agree, because we have history of internet technology, how it grew up. Nobody cares about Linux, nobody cares about Windows, nobody cares about Apple. They just gave the product, the end. Yeah, there was a small community that was working on it and joined, like now, even smaller, I guess, smaller than blockchain, because it didn't give that much money in the one moment in one day. So the idea is to create a project that's work and product that work, and the guy can hear. I see that cannabis is now the Barcelona is getting taxes from cannabis market. Perfect. Let's use it. In this case.
Yeah, so I want just to talk about a small project that started like 1.5 years ago, and this project started because I have been talking with a lot of social activists, local social activists, and what I see is that mainly when I talk about blockchain and the properties of blockchain, so I saw that people starting off, oh cool, who are the nodes? Who are the miners? And the answer is, oh yeah, it's a super corporation. Oh, cool. Cool. So, usually social activists wants to work with local providers, not global providers. Yeah. So it's going local and working local and just creating bondings with local people that it works. So I think in some point for some projects, the global network of incentivation that Ethereum provides doesn't work very well to provide security to local projects. It could provide security for a lot of global networks, yeah? So it's not like it's something iron, yeah? But not for the ground. So I just tried to, I talked with some people, so, but the question is who can manage those nodes in terms that are trusted people, yeah? And I mainly create a small network in Barcelona. Is a private blockchain, yeah, mainly. It's a proof of authority.
Private?
Yeah.
It's not possible to have a private blockchain. It's not blockchain.
Okay.
Forget about this word. Private blockchain doesn't exist. Okay. It's not a blockchain.
Private sidechain.
Okay. So I started to build a distributed computing engine, secure distributed computing engine between teachers of the university and also, for instance, Jordi Bailena, that you know it's a member of the Ethereum community, and there's also Giveth, that is the biggest mesh network in the world. So I think it's one of the most decentralized things that exist. So at this moment, with the idea it's to give to local projects some area to trust, yeah, and to develop things there. So, and the idea is to provide some basis to build projects on Barcelona. So the first project that we built with Ross that is here is like it's like a prototype, but it's still in beta. It's a social coin from the Sands neighborhood. So that is called, the project is called Capitalism, but it's an open source project. So the coin have no name, but it seems that it's going to be Quartos. That is all name for that. So, and we start to play. It's just a playground to people understand how to cryptocurrencies works, and also to do some social experiments about people sharing things and about how we can, with electronic economy, we can build different things. Yeah, and the idea is to be very short cycles of 1 month when this money is destroyed after the test, and if people is not using this money, it just goes to some cows. Yeah, that seems interesting. So what is the final idea? The final idea is that it's not that this token is not going to be mined in the computers of the university and so on. So the idea is that local neighbors has the nodes. The trust is in the territory. The trust is local. Yeah. So, but of course, we can, after that, we will use Ethereum 2.0 or Polkadot or whatever to provide wider security to the system. But always the trust should be local. So I think it's one bet. So I think we need to be very, very local and solve problems and find community that has problems and build solutions on that. So there's a guy that I met in a nice camp that Diana created. That is Gio. Gio have a very nice project that is called RadxChange. And mainly what it does is goes to community and personalize the application for local communities to be usable. So just modifying something small that makes it useful for this community. Yeah. So I think we're losing the point building super global projects and so on if you cannot modify, slightly modify applications to be that make to in a way that this application makes sense. Yeah, for these applications. So it's going local. I think it's the way. It's the way to archive. To be wider and go to the milestone. So.
FYI, try to keep one chair possibly free. Just saying. Go ahead.
Totally agree with the local stuff. This is going to be a boom, actually. But when you're speaking about the boom, it's one neighborhood used blockchain, the solution to perfectly without any corruption, not even the idea. Without any possibility of corruption and other things, choose their leader, they vote for the project for this community, they build a playground for the children. This is the stuff.
If I may, sorry.
No.
Sorry. But I'm a bit lost with a little bit the dynamic in the place. So if I can ask other people to speak up.
About project.
Yeah,
Actually,
I'd love to say a few things because I'm super inspired by Adria's story. Actually, Adria, I didn't know about that. I love you bringing this topic. Actually, with what you said, that made me jump into the stage. I have a question. How many of you are from Barcelona? Okay, not bad. Not bad. You are born in Barcelona. How many of you are directly involved in social projects? Directly involved.
In Barcelona?
In general.
In general.
Okay. Not bad. I think you said that sometimes when you have an idea, when you know the technical solutions or the opportunities of technology, you lose sight of reality. I think it's very important to create spaces that are like interfaces between real problems, like communities that are near to real problems, and technicians and entrepreneurs. And I really like this space. It's the first time I'm here, and I'm really inspired by this. So I'm here to create those spaces. Hopefully this year, 5 days in Barcelona, you are all invited. It's going to be free for developers, boys and girls, that are already working social projects and want to learn some basics of some not so well-known DLTs, like Overchain, IPFS, and Polkadot, and maybe some others. Hopefully middle of November. I'm going to be in touch with the Akasha community crew and also with Giveth crew because we have lots of things in common. And what else? There's another project we started in a pre-acceleration program where we met with Adria. This pre-acceleration program, it's mostly happening in the Rocha region, which is a astonishing volcanic region. But this year is going to happen 5 days in here with the webcam I mentioned. And one of the projects that arises there is a housing project that is trying to solve speculation in Barcelona. As you know, it's a pain in the ass. And I don't think we can solve it, so we're going to play with it, hopefully. So whoever is interested in housing, decentralized reputation, and rewarding reputation with a value, which is complicated, well, you know here, because this is quite a collective project. We are co-initiators, 4 organizations. We don't have a clue on where is this going to end up. So yeah, you're invited to come to.
What's it for?
Fair housing. We don't even have a website. Yeah, but we are applying to funding, so it's possibly we get some funding from the Catalan Barcelona government in September. We will see. Fair housing. Thank you for the space.
civichub.org, Diana@pandorahub.co. Write it right down.
First time one click to this.
This one is on here.
What's this on the blockchain?
But it doesn't have a website.
There's a Twitter account, I think, right?
Oh, is it?
So Paul, you have a project?
I thought I would pick up on what Andrea said about what happens with all of these big networks, what happens with all of these global Ethereum networks, but who's running the Ethereum network? Well, there are several ways of decentralization. Decentralization can have different angles. One of them is architectural decentralization, and it's about how many machines a system is composed, how many nodes, if you have one node and everybody needs to connect to that node, it's a centralized system. If you have two, sort of like starts getting decentralized. If you have 1 million, it's very decentralized. But there's another, and I think that's what Andrea was referring to, there's another aspect of decentralization, which is the political decentralization. Who owns these machines? Who is running those nodes? Who actually has the power to make the decision of putting these nodes online or accepting or cutting traffic onto those nodes? And this is political decentralization. And political decentralization, political centralization is a fact in today's blockchains. We have around 70% of the Ethereum nodes right now running on virtual private servers, which are owned by extremely centralized companies like DigitalOcean or Amazon or Azure, Microsoft. 70% of them. We have a declining number of nodes right now in the Ethereum network, and maybe around 2,000. And 70% of those are in centralized systems. If we want the network to be resilient, if we want the network to be useful for people that are doing things that cannot be censored, if we want really this to be a network that's censorship resistant, we need to own our own nodes. We need to go local, as Andrea was saying. We need to have nodes that are owned by our neighbors, our people, our universities, the people that we trust, local trust. And those are the nodes that they don't have to even run Ethereum. Like it's good if they run Ethereum nodes, but they could run like Andrea's, how do you call it? Like Andrea's engine, distributed computing engine is doing. You actually trust these networks. And now let me show a little bit right here. What I'm doing with some other people is we're creating a system that allows people to own their own nodes, and it's making it really easy for them to own their own nodes. And you can put anything you want in that machine. So our project is called DAppNode, dappnode.io. Please, Dapp as the centralized application. Thank you. dappnode.io. And it's open source software that you can run in your own machine. And it basically allows you to run any node that you want on one-click install. If you're a developer, you have a big advantage because you can create your own packages. You can create your own. Adria could, for example, create a package of his network and distribute this package through IPFS, and then anybody with that IPFS hash would be able to install this on their own nodes. So it eliminates completely, some people, Adria's grandma would be able to install this if she had a DAppNode. And that what this creates is it creates, wow, that's a big bite. What this creates is this system where you actually are totally decentralizing the network, and it eliminates all the technical complexity out of it. So if you want to check it out and you are a developer and you want to start developing packages, this is a really good way for you and your applications to start having it very easy to distribute your applications to other people that would be running this software. It's open source software that you can download for free and start doing it. Actually, like even, so I'm gonna be a little bit cheeky now, and people, we developed this software, right? And people were running it in virtual private service. People were running it on DigitalOcean, which sort of defies the, like it's besides the point. But so now, even if you want to gift it to your boyfriends or girlfriends or whoever it is, we're actually selling machines that come pre-installed with it. So you can buy a DAppNode. You can just go like, hey, here's your node, run it. You don't need to know any of the technical blockchain stuff. You go in and you run Adria's node right now, and with one click, you can do that. So that's end of the show. The cheapest version is around 500 euros.
Can I have I got a project. I got a project. First, I am grateful for the team that organized this meetup, and I would feel uncomfortable to. I can speak about my project, right?
Yeah. We are all good.
Perfect. Thank you very much for this. Me and my team that's based in Russia, the main guy, physicist who were programming this core for 5 years, then working in Russia, in Moscow, and we already have a platform. And now I want to run a project here. As here was said about local project, I believe it's not matter about what team says, think, but I believe in more like society, associations, cooperatives.
Can I help you to explain this, because I think that you're maybe going too long, but what is the problem that you are looking for solved?
I'm looking for the project, for the ideas. I'm looking for the problems. For example, you have a cooperative or you have association. You want to turn cannabis to the goods, to serve people. Okay, come, we have resources, we can make it, we can record all this in the blockchain. What is blockchain? The blockchain is just a node of all records. This is main word of blockchain. It's just a node with a history that should be recorded. So if you have idea to, for example, bring to your neighborhood load system, come, we have solution. We already have a platform. You have ERP system to make a shipment, to record all the shipments points from Africa to Europe. Come, we have a solution. We will cooperate with your programmers and make it.
So you're like consultants, or you help other people to do their business.
Yeah, I'm giving all the resources. I mean, the blockchain resources, not money resources. We should cooperate in money case. We should cooperate in fair.
So the way you work is that people with a problem comes to you and
Comes
you
to
help
me.
them.
Yeah. Comes to me where?
When you're done.
Well,
stuff.
I guess I have some visits card. You have a question?
What's the name of this project?
Eric, I will go on. Do you feel that we are going to new era of IT, the blockchain, era chain?
Yeah. Totally.
ORG, era chain ORG, the point com. So yeah, if you can come, speak, and check this out.
What is my project? Yeah, I'm here because I have a project, of course. My project is about building the future now. And that's a really tough one because every day is a different day, every now is a different now, you know? So we came here to talk about markets, and all I can think about is that my project is to lead new emergent markets that will happen, that will come abroad. I mean, we're talking about bonding curve, causes, communities. We're talking about creating a bunch of markets. Old markets sucks, totally. And we are having the opportunity to create new markets. And I know that the technology is not ready, but I come to these places and I've seen that there are a lot of heads there that are already ready to go for that, you know? So that's kind of my project. My project is to build culture about that, to invite people about leading this upcoming future and to be ready to whatever it will come that we don't know. It's a lot of fear also, but let's confront that fear with love and let's get together with lovely people like this one, lovely people. I'm really grateful for not only for this project, but for all this week, really, really grateful. So, yes, I think that's what to say.
So I'm going to share a little bit about a project that I've been working on the past 3 years. We are still not at the Web3, we are still not using crypto, but I think a lot of the values, a lot of the things that we mapped, we have in common with the crypto community, and that's why I started getting part of this community or getting more into this world. The main idea is that right now we are changing from this structure that we had everything kind of centralized. You have external entities always doing this mediation between you and anyone, except from this this real physical relationship. Everything else is moderated by another entity. So we didn't believe that thing was right. So that was when we started creating this project that's called Plural. The idea behind Plural is that you have a communication platform that's community owned. Why that? It's even when you create, in our case, a voting platform in a social network, you still need a lot of participatory inclusion in those platforms. So if you use the same model to create we can replace Facebook with another Facebook. If the structure is the same, you're going to have the same incentives to replicate this. So the idea is okay, let's create a DAO. That's not we understand as a DAO to govern those applications, and let's make those applications self-governing so that people can influence how the platform evolves, how the platform evolves. Later on, we end up discovering crypto and see that there's a lot of work already being done. From the economic side, having this money, this exchanging platform for value, but also now with these technologies in how to make those small communities, for example, how to found those small communities, how to create liquidity for small projects that you want to improve. For example, in the case of the social network, if you want some different rule in the social network, you can gather votes and you can deploy that. That should be like, that's our vision for the future. And those things are technologies that other people are creating and are also sharing with us, so we can build those platforms. And so basically, this is a little bit of the idea of creating like self-owned social networks, community platforms that are not only created by the commons but also self-regulated, because that is like another important part of radical markets, is that you can create markets, for example, for content moderation. Like, for example, here in Barcelona, you have like really huge offices of Facebook doing content moderation, but like the market is Facebook market. It's like, there is no market like, let me moderate like the content of Facebook and you will pay me a fair value. So these things will be possible in the future, like especially like in the new future, like we has this common stack. There is a lot of parts getting done, like that's like you have like the internet currency, you have DAI, you have like, it's getting like really close to already being used. So I think like we are really like the next step would be like more the participatory side. Like, oh, it's already almost working. Let's get the people that want this kind of solution. It's not that like push this solution to people, but let's get the people that would be interested in those solutions, and let's start sharing with them. Like you share your ideas, your projects, and they will share like their perceptions, their observations, and how you will grow your platform. So you have like this coordination mechanism solving like how to create products, how to create like sustainable platforms, how to create like ethical solutions to what right now is centralized entities telling you what to do. So this is a bit of the idea behind Plural. I'm Rafael.
Your project?
Plural but with double L. I will. Yes.
Plural Networks.
Is there anyone else who has anything burning? I see the chairs behind me have stayed empty, so I think that's probably part of the function that I may have.
Maybe people are burning to talk in small groups again.
Right? No, that's okay. Go ahead and say what? Yeah. Come on in. Yeah.
We talked with Lorenzo last week about an idea that we threw in the air, and I think it's relevant to now, is like maybe to start just a simple Google spreadsheet with like all the local sort of blockchain related, DAO related projects. So since we're all here, I think maybe we can share this in the Meetup, or I don't know if there's a mailing list or something like that. So that, because right now I don't think there's anything, and it's a bit of a shame, I think. So,
thank you, Adrian.
That's it.
I can add the link if you create a Google Sheet. I can add it also on Twitter, and I'll add it to the Meetup as well.
Awesome, let's do that. Yeah.
You create it, I'll share it.
Okay.
All right, because ultimately we each came here as sovereign individuals of whom great ideas have taken hold. And those great ideas that have found you have found other people too. So thank you, Adrian, for reminding us that beyond tonight, this is a little bit of a beginning. You know, I actually want to take just a couple minutes of everybody's time, because tonight, Friday, was the last day of 7 days of really intense work by this community whose sticker I wear on my shirt. Because ultimately, I'm Dani, and I don't work for anybody. I stand up here and I say what I think based on what I've figured out from listening to the people that I trust and want to hear what they have to say, because it helps me be a better decision maker in my world. And the people with Giveth help me do that, and that's why I choose to spend my time with them. And this week's been amazing, and I want to ask everybody who is part of the Giveth community to stand up for a moment, because I want to give you some love, and I want to invite everybody else to do that too. Thank you guys so much. And anybody who doesn't have a sticker on them and relate to the Speech Hub, get those stickers.
Everyone's like, what are they doing?
Everybody, come on! Thank you, everyone. And there's two outcomes I want to see from here. Number one, if anybody's interested in carrying forward RadxChange Barcelona.
Yeah, so this meetup, we run it where we started it, but we don't want to run it because we don't actually live in Barcelona. So we're hoping to kickstart it here, and maybe if someone else is really excited about radical markets, if you guys want to actually like have an opportunity to be leaders in the community and push this as a meetup, maybe it happens once every 2 months, and we can help you, but we need a human here that we can help, because we were here for a week, but now we're all leaving. So,
And the only thing you have to do is actually this: just buy some pizzas, bring some people together, and maybe you can ask Lorenzo if you can do it here again, if that's possible. That would be nice, and we will support it.
Actually, you have my approval of that. I think you just basically anybody wants to jump in.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And we have an amazing network. We can get people from Radical that are experts in this stuff to come. They just need an organizer. Does anyone want to do it?
You don't have to say, like, it's not an official yes, it's been streamed, yes, but you can just say, I'm kind of interested, maybe. And then even if you're shy to say no, just come and talk to us. Yeah. Find us on Twitter or wherever in the meetup and say, like, hey, I want to do this. There's not a lot to this, and as Griff said, we can help you, and we will help you in any way possible. It's Glenn Weil, who wrote the book Radical Markets, who actually asked us, hey, do you want to start this in Barcelona? And we were like, we already have so much this week, but yes, of course, this sounds fantastic. We want to like bring communities together. That's all we are about. So please help us if you have, even if it's just like once in a while, a little bit time.
Yeah, and if I could just finish up on one point on that. Having organized a lot of meetups and a lot of events for all different sizes of people and varying degrees of participation, having the tools to make this sustainable has always been a challenge. And using these tools that we are able to test as our own community and then present to you as a community, like I hope that some of you will accept that gift from us, because this tool allowed us to do this and to give back to everybody who participated. It didn't come out of our pockets. We actually have a kitty for the next time we want to cat herd a bunch of you.
Oh.
So, thanks.
Yeah. How much longer can we stay here before you kick us out?
Oh wow,
cool.
Then
well,
maybe say also then for that. Thank you so much, Lorenzo from Akasha, for hosting us. So really, big thanks. He even went outside without us asking, like, oh, there's no more beer, and he got you more beer. So that's what. And then as a final note, I just want to thank Dani, because we had a super busy week, and she was just like, let's do this, and she did it. So thank you so much.
Anyone who hasn't checked in for the event who staked tokens, please come see me so you can check in and get your value back. Plus, you get a bit of whoever didn't do it.
So come and get your money. Okay, thank you so much. So there's drinks. Thanks for tonight.